There are 11 Chinatowns in the New York area with about 800,000 total residents, comprising the largest Chinese population outside of Asia. We're taking you to Manhattan's Chinatown, which is the most famous, and while it's not the biggest, it's home to the highest concentrated population density of Chinese people in the Western Hemisphere. Tourism, manufacturing, and retail are the major industries, with 300 Chinese restaurants, some Asian antique shops, and countless souvenir stores sprawling over many blocks. Located in Lower Manhattan in the blocks around Canal Street, as you see on the map, this is one of America's oldest Chinatowns. The first Chinese arrived in the 1840s, and they have been coming in ever since. However, there were restrictions put on immigration in the late 19th century. In the years after 1965, when America allowed many more immigrants from Asia into the country, the population of Chinatown increased dramatically, and now the sidewalks are often crowded with a mix of locals and tourists. Most visitors blow through in about half an hour and just walk along a couple of the main streets like Mott and Mulberry and Canal and then depart, and that's fine. But you can venture into the side streets and go further east to get a real taste of the neighborhood, as we're showing you on the map route that we took to make this movie, bringing you all around. Chinatown has several quite different faces. On one hand, it's an exotic bit of Asia appealing to tourists. It's like entering a different world from the rest of Manhattan. Lots of shops selling trinkets and many restaurants serving authentic cuisine, making a fine place to stroll. On the other hand, it's a very busy commercial district with small factories, trucks loading and unloading everywhere, warehouses packed with goods, importing, exporting, many little banks, and a slightly chaotic energy. It's a busy New York dynamo. And it is also home to 100,000 Chinese, many of them poor, living in cramped housing, unable to speak English, and hardly, if ever, leaving this neighborhood. The housing stock of Chinatown is still mostly composed of cramped tenement buildings, some of which are over 100 years old. And yet the public face of Chinatown is that of a touristic destination. Souvenirs that are real expensive elsewhere in the city are more affordable here, and it's the same item you'll find in Midtown. After all, most souvenirs and these cheap t-shirts are made in China, so it figures there is a direct pipeline to Chinatown merchants. There are many dozens of these tourist shops, and they usually have pretty much the same stuff. You can play the bargaining game here, especially if you're looking at several items. So here's a couple of tips. Ask them, what's your best price for this and that and that? And then show no interest and walk away, and maybe you'll get a better offer. Turn around and make your counter, and then pull out some cash. It's good to have a lot of 10s and 20s so that you can negotiate in the lower end. Show them the money and make a deal. That's all standard practice down here in Chinatown. It's part of the fun and will save you a little money. These merchants will never be offended by your low offers. Columbus Park, the only park in Chinatown, is a popular gathering spot for young and old. Card playing, checkers, gossip, soccer, basketball, relaxing. It's a major recreation center and makes a good place to get away from what might be small apartments. Considering the astronomical price of Manhattan real estate, it's remarkable to have this open space, and yet necessary for the 100,000 residents. The park is located on what had been during the 19th century the most dangerous ghetto area of immigrant New York. This was the famous Five Points neighborhood as portrayed in the book and film Gangs of New York. Now on one side it's bordered by a tall building housing the criminal courts. Chinatown first got started right here on Mott, Moscow, Pell, and Doyer Street, as you can see on the map, and we are going to take a little walk around the block here. Pell Street is one of those earliest locations of Chinatown, and it's a few blocks south of Canal, away from Mulberry, so there's not many tourists here. It's mostly local, and plenty of local shops and bars and retail stores and Chinese signs everywhere. Doyer Street is only 1 block long, and yet it seems to go on forever with that bend of the road. It's got a history from the Tong Gang, who had some violent shootouts with rivals here. Conditions have changed considerably since then in Chinatown, especially with the more recent gentrification. Rent is going up, apartment prices are skyrocketing. Super expensive housing is spreading down from Soho. Chinatown is expanding north into what had been Little Italy and out to the East River. There's not much left of Little Italy anymore, only 2 blocks along Mulberry Street, most famous for Ferrara, that great bakery with their cannolis. This neighborhood used to be filled with thousands of Italian immigrants 100 years ago. And now the Italians and other non-Chinese groups are pretty much gone. Still has some Italian restaurants, but it's mostly tourist gift shops. It's very much a neighborhood in transition. A lot of construction going on, revitalization of the old buildings, and everything is going upscale, even down here in the Lower East Side. We'll take a walk along Hester Street for a few blocks. It's one tourist shop after another, it seems, but fun to look at with these open fronts. As you look down the side streets, you'll notice that gridiron of the old fire escapes. It really is a characteristic and quaint touch of old New York. Here you can see how Chinatown has really been expanding, especially out here on the east side with the residents from Fuzhou in the southeast part of China. In recent decades, they've been the main group coming in. Sarah Roosevelt Park, named after the mother of FDR, is a very popular gathering spot for the locals. This part of town has always been an important place of commerce since the beginnings of our nation. Cargo was unloaded at the docks 400 years ago, and this kind of work is still going on today in the streets, such as Allen Street, which is pretty much the eastern boundary of Chinatown, completing our look at this ethnic enclave. And we have more movies about New York that you can find in our collection. We upload a new movie every week, so please subscribe to our channel. Then you'll be notified. And if you enjoyed the movie, how about a thumbs up? And we always welcome comments down below. It really helps us spread the word. Thank you.